This morning's Farm Report is sponsored by LS Tractor. Start blue, stay blue.
This year, make LS Tractor your all-season workhorse. From spring applications using LS tillers, box blades, rotary cutters, and grapples, to winter applications utilizing LS snow blowers, blades, and brooms. With this lineup, there's no job you can't do with LS tractors and implements. Learn more at lstractorusa.com or check out your local LS dealer.
Well, a great big howdy to everybody. It's good to be here this morning. I hope you are getting along well with the heat. I have an article to start things this morning that deals with the act of reducing tobacco use in society, and this is coming direct from the head of Philip Morris Tobacco Company, the biggest tobacco company in the world. Here's what he says. In a recent London meeting of global media, politicians and policymakers, Jack Olczak, Chief Executive Officer of Philip Morris International, said cigarettes belong in museums, according to a PMI press release. He added that current policies for reducing smoking prevalence aren't working fast enough and may be prolonging smoking. We've all heard the line, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And still, despite often restrictive regulations, high product prices, marketing bans, and packaging designed to discourage buying, today public health data show that 1 billion people worldwide choose to smoke. He added, today, thanks to smoke-free products, these 1 billion people have better options than continuing to smoke. Because of these options, we can begin to imagine an accelerated decline in smoking and associated diseases, and not by a little, but by a lot. Drawing upon a new hypothetical model based on World Health Organization data, estimates and methods, as well as other third-party data, Olczak explained that even if smoke-free products were assumed to be only 80% less risky than cigarettes, and if smokers were to switch completely, then over their lifetime there's a potential for a tenfold reduction in smoking attributable deaths compared to with his historical tobacco control measures. He highlighted the absurd paradox that smoke-free products are banned in some countries while cigarettes, despite their far greater risk of harm, can still be sold. While this model has limitations and is built on assumptions, the public health cost of ignoring the potential of smoke-free products could be immense. According to PMI, that's Philip Morris International, the company committed to moving away from cigarettes in 2016 and has invested more than $10.5 billion as of March 2023 since 2008 in developing and commercializing smoke-free products, which today account for nearly 35% of the company's total net revenues. Olczak explained that the company's mission is to reduce smoking by replacing cigarettes with less harmful alternatives and ultimately to make cigarettes obsolete. However, PMI's ability to progress on this mission is being frustrated by a combination of blind opposition from anti-tobacco organizations and government's over-reliance on the so-called precautionary principle, which some interpret as better not do anything till we know everything, which he indicates results in government inaction and more of the same. Olczak called on all governments to follow the examples of countries like Sweden and Japan, as well as the United Kingdom, and adopt policies that give adult smokers who don't quit a wide choice of alternatives to continue smoking. Additionally, he challenged anti-tobacco organizations to update their thinking, stop blocking innovation, and work toward a common goal to achieve a smoke-free future faster. It's time to work toward a common goal of delivering effective policies that make cigarettes a historical artifact, a museum piece collecting dust behind glass cases, Ozak said. So we'll see how this unfolds and evolves. And regarding this sentiment, the use of smoking in public has declined. Some of this is because of smoking regulations, whereby you can't smoke in a public building and things like that. And we'll just see how this forecast works out in the coming days, weeks, and years. We'll see, and we'll applaud their efforts. But on the other hand, the art of growing tobacco is a cherished thing, and it has instilled discipline in a lot of young people growing up on the farm. And the fact of growing tobacco here in the U.S., there's a legacy to it. So let me share with you these words, these ideas from a tobacco grower who actually lives down in Georgia, Mr. Fred Wetherington. Fluke tobacco grower Fred Wetherington is a busy farmer traveling from county to county and state to state. Wetherington, who lives in Hayhira, Georgia, which is in the northwest Lowndes County and north of Valdosta, Georgia, also raises tobacco in Madison County, Florida, on a large acreage owned by Birdsong Peanuts. In June 2022, Wetherington, who was standing in Florida tobacco soil, spoke to those attending the Georgia-Florida Tobacco Tour. However, this wasn't the first time he had ventured into Florida to grow tobacco. In the early 90s, he and his father tested the deep, sandy soils of Florida and Mother Nature's will. To make a long story short, we got our tails kicked because it's a lot different growing tobacco in Florida than it is in South Georgia, because we're from the north end, he said. On the south end of Lowndes County, Lowndes is on the state line. It's maybe not so different. Up in Hayhira and counties nearby, it's all the way different than what we're dealing with down here. So there's a contrast, he's saying, between growing tobacco in North Florida and even growing tobacco in South Georgia. After the 1990 season ended, Wetherington remembers telling his father that he wasn't tending tobacco in Florida again. Never say never. You learn not to say that, he said. About 4 years ago, he returned to the Sunshine State to test his tobacco knowledge once again. He was a bit more prepared this time around. We sort of learned some lessons from the 90s, he said, and with technology and stuff, we're set up better to handle what we are doing anyway in 2022 than what we were in the 1990s. For his growth needs, Wetherington applies liquid fertilizer and has been using it for about 11 years or more. At first, it cost him a lot to transition from granular fertilizer to liquid fertilizer, but he believes the investment has paid off for tobacco growers of crop scale such as himself. He sees the benefits. Wetherington says liquid fertilizer is application friendly, and it has noticed a quicker takeoff reaction by plants. Recalling his 1990s tobacco growing experience in Florida, Wetherington said fertilizer reacts a bit differently in northern Florida than in northwestern Lowndes County, Georgia. In Florida, if you get 1.5 inches or 2 inches of rain that comes all at once, you better go ahead and call your fertilizer man, because you're going to need to add some more fertilizer. That's not something that's true back home. That was one of the big lessons that we learned back in the 1990s. The fertilizer requirements down here are really based on your rainfall and how that rain comes. It's just because of sand down here. Fertilizer will get away and move away from you if you get a very big rain at one time. About 7 or 8 or 9 years ago, Birdsong Peanuts had some of their Florida land cleared after standing in pine trees for many years. On the open land, the company was planting peanuts and corn. After a few years, Birdsong Peanuts wanted to expand crops raised on the open land. Anyway, we got hooked up with them. This is our third year in a row, Weatherton said, in 2022. We'd never had all the crop in one spot before, and as you could imagine, we had been spread out over most of our lives in 3 or 4 counties, having 20, 30, 40-acre fields here and there, that is in Georgia. It was a pretty attractive idea if we could get moved down here with our equipment and all we thought it and we thought it might work. Seed choice, efficient production. Fred grows his own tobacco plants, and that has been helpful in his operation. Weatherington grows his own greenhouse tobacco transplants, and some tobacco transplants for others in a 12,400-foot greenhouse near his shop in Hayhira. In 2022, at Florida, he grew varieties such as PVH 1600, NC 55, NC 72, and PVH 2310. He particularly likes NC 72. It's not a real popular variety, I don't think, throughout the country, Weatherington said, but it's been our favorite variety since the early 2000s. We had trouble with NC 71 in 1999, and so since about 2000, NC 72 has been either our number one variety or right there at the top. Like many growers today, Weatherington also selects his varieties based on whether they are early, medium, or late maturing. He chooses PVH 2310 as his early maturing variety. We've tried different early maturing varieties through the years, and I always knew that would be a good trick for us to try to get more tobacco through our curing barns. That's the first one I can tell you that we really became a believer in. It's like our 6th or 7th year of the 2310. That's actually where we'll start harvesting. 2310, again, is a tobacco variety. It's early maturing, and it allows the grower to begin barning sooner and helps space out the use of their tobacco barns. 2310 is a very popular variety at this point, even up here in eastern North Carolina. Raising the right variety choice, he plans on making 2,500 pounds per acre. However, he shoots for 3,000 pounds per acre. He said a lot of time he can reach 3,000 pounds per acre if the growth season cooperates. But you know the good Lord is in charge of the weather and wind, Weatherton said. He could attest to that when wind blew down or leaned some of his crop in 2022. He and his crew spent days standing up tobacco plants. The weather event also delayed topping and suckering and put his time schedule behind. Never say never haunts Weatherington again. When he was a teen, he can remember his family took very few vacations, and he can't remember ever leaving Georgia and Florida to see the sights. When I got in high school, I was determined I was going to do something else other than grow tobacco, and I went into the Army. I got into the military academy and graduated from West Point. That was my ticket, and Dad didn't have to pay for college. That was my patriotic ticket off the farm. By the time he reached his sophomore year at West Point, he caught himself asking his mom and dad how the tobacco crop looked and what growth stage it was in. So once he reached his sophomore year, Weatherington knew he wasn't going to pull 20 years in the Army. However, he did sign up for 7 years. When his father's health declined, he returned home to Weatherington, tobacco country. During this time in the Army, Weatherington went in combat, but he said it was nothing compared to the battle he faced each day raising tobacco. When I get into tobacco farming circles, there's not a lot of us got combat experience. I always tell them, I think that was some of my best experience with what we go through here, especially when harvest starts. The operation we run is about like being in combat. It's pretty intense for 10 to 12 weeks. Weatherington buses his Florida harvest back to his curing facility on the south side of Valdosta, but it's still a long way from home as far as Hahira. So he's doing a good job, and he's very sought after for consultation, and he has a picture-perfect, pristine operation both down in Georgia and Florida. And we salute Mr. Fred Weatherington for his good efforts. But back to the issue of tobacco and tobacco use, we have there continues to be controversy over the use of tobacco and the future of tobacco. And one of the leading proponents of it is the World Health Organization, the WHO. And here's some remarks from them. The World Health Organization urges countries to stop partnering and working with the tobacco industry. The World Health Organization, which by way of an acronym is called the WHO, or WHO, is concerned with continued attempts by the tobacco industry and their surrogates to further its interests to influence scientific research, public perception, policy making, and the media, according to a WHO press release. The organization indicates these steps by the tobacco industry are aimed to ensure proliferation and sale of nicotine and tobacco products. In May of 2023, a press release was issued. WHO added that the tobacco industry continues to amplify misinformation in the media, including the recent report that with attacks on tobacco control organizations, and is the only one that stands to benefit by undetermining tobacco control organizations. WHO goes on to say that there is a fundamental and irreconcilable conflict between the tobacco industry interest and public health policy interests. The organization urges all member states to ensure that they are not partnering with or accepting funds from the industry or its front groups. The international community must not forget that the tobacco industry knowingly denied its products were linked with cancer and falsely claimed there was no harm from secondhand smoke, WHO emphasized. That has been an argument all through the years, that no, the products do not promote cancer, and there is no harm to secondhand smoke. And this continues to be brought up and debated and discussed. The misleading conduct continues today with tobacco, e-cigarettes, and other nicotine companies concealing the addictive nature of their products. That's another word that continues to crop up, addictive, and it continues to be debated to the extent of whether or not that's true. While directly targeting children and young adults with advertisements for harmful products. The tobacco industry has no place in tobacco control or harm reduction policy. So this continues to be a sore source of contention, and we'll see how that unfolds as well. Thank you for this good time today. Thank you for allowing me to come in and be with you. We appreciate once more LS Tractor Company for sponsoring this agribusiness report. It's an honor for me to be here with you, and I look forward to being with you next week. Have a good week, and God bless.